Hello all, this is Karthik. Today I would like to cover CSS selectors, which is useful to identify elements in a web page using Selenium. So basic syntax of CSS selector is nothing but tag name and attribute name and attribute value. So I will take a simple example to explain this. So I have just went to Google page and I'm using FirePath. So today I'm not considering that fire path or something. My focus is only to explain what are the basic syntaxes and symbols and patterns you are using in CSS selector to identify an element. Now, if I take this one div and id equal to gb, I'm able to identify this particular uh, line in the web page. As I said before, you have two components, important components in entire HTML page, which is nothing but one is tag and one is attribute, id and class. Id and classes are attributes here, and div is nothing but tag. As I said before, basic syntax is nothing but tag name, which is div here, and attribute name either id or class you can use, and you can take this id value and copy here. So this is how it gets identified. The next thing I cover is how to give multiple properties. So when you are trying to identify elements in any automation, there is more possibility to get elements which are duplicate in nature. That means if you have, there may be a chance of getting two click buttons in same web page which are having same id and same class everything. So at that time, to filter out your particular element, you should give more number of unique properties to filter out uniquely that element on which you want to work. So you should know how to give multiple properties to identify that element uniquely. So at that time, what you can do is you can keep giving one more property in square brackets as before. Like id we have given already, and class you can choose, that is in single quotes gb underscore t. Maybe we are missing something here. Let me. So this is class, right? So just I am writing down class equal to, just I'll take this value, paste here and put it in single quotes, bracket close. So again I am able to identify the same element by giving two properties. And please note down, id is always unique. Like how is your employee id is unique, so id attribute in any html page will be unique for any element. So that is why if you give id you don't want to give, but just I want to show how can you give multiple properties. That is what I have taken this example. And when I go to the next topic is nothing but child elements. So always after identifying your element on which you need to work out, so there are always scenarios where you need to identify child elements of a particular object. So this is nothing but techniques to identify your element on which you need to work uniquely. So this is child elements, identifying child elements always I said. So if you want to write down something, there will be always parent element, child element. In if you look at html hierarchy itself, every element will have one parent element. Let's say, see, this document is nothing but parent element. So come down, html tag. So document tag, html is nothing but child tag of this parent element. We can call this total html lang, this entire line as one element. So that element will be having parent element and child elements as well. So that means you should know how I can traverse through the HTML document by using different techniques like child elements, following child element, immediate child elements, like that. So immediate child element is nothing but very adjacent to that. The next immediate element is nothing but immediate child element. So let's say, to identify immediate child element, always you can go for a symbol called greater than. If you use greater than symbol, you will be able to identify the immediate child element of element on which which you are giving there. I will give you a simple example here by taking the same thing, like, can go for it. So let's say, let us see whether it has child elements or not. See, it has child element. So this div is nothing but gbw div is nothing but child element of this parent element. Again, even this child element is having child element. See, it says this hierarchy is keeps going till span value. So this is parent element, child, again next child, like that it goes. So now if I want to go to immediate child, just I'll give symbol called greater than, then div. So that means you immediately went to immediate child element like div id when you give greater than symbol. Here even you don't want to give id value, because only one element you have. You don't want to uniquely identify the child elements, as you have only one immediate child element here. As soon as you give div, you it is getting identified. There is a chance that it is enough to give only tag name. If you are able to identify that element uniquely, even if you don't give attributes value also, it gets identified as shown here. Now this is, I want to cover the important symbol called greater than. Here if you give greater than, it goes to immediate child. The next thing is like space to represent all following child. Sometimes you need to give space. Let's say I don't want to go for only immediate. I want to know how many elements under my parent element. This is called as till this is called as parent element. So I want to find sometimes how many links are there. So just I'll give it. See, as many div values here irrespective of what you have. So you will be getting all divs here. See, if you look at this, it keeps going. Whatever div, whenever it finds div value, it is able to identify all your elements. That means if you want to find out all following child elements, type called div. Here type also playing role. What is the type? Type in the sense div. If you give div here, the type div will be identified under parent element called here this gb, and gb underscore t is nothing but parent element. Under this parent element, the type div, how many divs it will be identified. So let's say if I give a, I want to find out how many links I have under this parent element. So I can give, just if I give a, definitely it will not get identified because the immediate child is not a, it is a div. So that is nothing but just I am giving a here. So as many A's you have, see 37 links are there under this particular parent element. That means it is returning following all child elements if you give just space. So that is why even we want to know, if you give greater than immediate child, if you give space, it will be all following childs with the same type called A. And the next thing I'd like to cover is symbols. So what is this like child elements, I have covered it. And symbols in the sense, sometimes you don't want to give again always write id class something like that. Just if you give this symbol, let me show you simple example. Even I can modify the existing thing. See here, id equal to gb and class equal to gb underscore t we have given. No, in place of id value, just I can replace hash symbol here. As soon as you put a hash symbol, there is no necessary of giving square brackets and single quotes anything. So just hash and id value will identify your respective element. So now See, it is getting identified. Now let me check class value. Even class also can be replaced by symbol called dot, and by removing the single quotes. Here also I am removing it, and now see, this is how. That means when you are writing down, this is one of the technique you can use to represent CSS selector. Just if you have very lengthy CSS selector, if you don't want to write always this ID equal to class something, just you can replace ID and class values by using dot and hash symbols respectively, as shown here. And the next thing I would like to cover here is, so space, I have already covered what is the use of space. And here this dot is nothing but dot only. Consider there is a scenario where you have a class which is having lot of spaces like this. I'll take this example. Now if you as it is copy this class value, I said if you want to represent class value, you put just dot value, right? So just if you put dot value here, it will not get identified because there are lot of spaces here which will not return your respective expected element. So that is what, if you want to represent a class which is having spaces, just put dots there. You just replace all spaces with dots so that it will identify uh, as a unique element. So just I'm giving dots here. I'm replacing. See, it is getting identified now. That means you have to replace spaces with dot symbol so that your identify your element will be returned uniquely. The next topic I would like to cover is plus symbol. What is this really plus symbol here? Plus symbol in the sense, let me show you here. So I'm just going to. So as soon as I give greater than div, as I said, the immediate child. So immediate child in the sense, if they are in the same hierarchy, if you have 10 divs in the same hierarchy, this is immediate child. Even this is also immediate child of this. This is not immediate child. This is nothing but next child. But this div and this div which are highlighted now will be immediate child of this class. Now if I want to not to go for immediate child, but I need to start from the next to next, let's say plus div. Plus div in the sense it will go to the next child element. So let's say this is nothing but next hierarchy. Sometimes you don't want to go for not immediate child but sibling of immediate child. Sibling in the sense this is nothing but sibling. Let me give one more div here. What happens? Let's see. See, I'm not having any other sibling. So this plus is nothing but basically the sibling of this particular div value. Let's say this div is nothing but number 1, this div is nothing but number 2. If you want to represent siblings of type div, you have to represent like this. So when I give just div greater than div, it is getting identified. But I want to go to second sibling. This is kind of indexing you can take. You can tell the first sibling, second sibling. So I'm giving, I don't want to go for the all elements. I want to go for the second sibling. So if I go to plus div here, it is going to second sibling. This div and this div are called as siblings. So if you want to go to next sibling, just you give plus symbol here and div so that you will go to the next element. Next, these all are techniques you should know, to write effective CSS. There are always chances where you will not identify unique element by just passing basic syntax. So that means you should use different techniques to use to uniquely identify your element. Maybe there will be only major things you have is parent element, child element, and siblings. So if you are having a good command on writing down child elements by using greater than symbol and spaces, and siblings like plus symbol and space something, you can get good command on writing css selectors. So once you are done with that plus symbol, already I covered in space. These two are nth child and nth type. I believe you remember in my previous session I have covered what is a following child and following, a preceding child and following child in next path. So just by giving a double colon and you are giving some following child of two something in next path. Likewise, even CSS selector also is providing two different techniques, is called as nth child and nth of type. Those names itself are representing nth child in the sense it is concentrating on the position, like first child, second child, third child, like that type. And the nth of type is nothing but it is concentrating on both position as well as that particular type which you are representing here. If I represent of div of type 1, it will search for the first element which is falling under type called div. If you give just a div of nth of child 2, it will directly go to the second position of div. I will show you simple example. This child is basically concentrating only on position. This type is concentrating on position as well as type of that. It will filter two things, the type called div and position called 1. And here it will filter only position called 2. If you look at the example, it will be more clear. Just I am taking this example. See here, this is nothing but as soon as I give child 2, it will not care that under GBDC, the second position is nothing but div. That is why it will return. Let me give you 1 here. If you give 1, it will not get identified because the first position is not div. That is why it is not returning any element for you. If you give 2, it will return because the second position is div. That is why it is filtering position and both the things it is filtered, it is getting identified. So if I want to give 1, let me show you simple example here. Nth of type 1. If you give nth of type 1, it is getting identified. That means it will not consider a as first position here, it will consider div as first position because it will search for the type called div which is position 1. That means here under this particular parent element, the first position is nothing but div, this position is nothing but 1 and type called div. But if you give nth of child of div, definitely it will not get identified because nth of child will care about the position of the child. First position it will go, it will, if the type is div, it will return, otherwise it will not return. But if you give type, it will consider type also and it will return according to your requirement. I think you are clear about nth of child, which is concentrating only on position of that. If that position and type is filtering out and matching, then only it will return. But if position, either position or type is not matching, then it will not return your element. But if you look at nth of type of 1 or nth of type of 2, it will return your respective element by filtering. It will take both the attributes to identify your element. So that is also one of the technique you can use it. So if you want, example, this is a very good example you can use. So this I have used, this particular thing I have used by using, just I went to Google page and I tried to identify elements like this. Even if you practice by taking simple examples like this, and you can get good command on CSS selector. So this CSS selector really useful when your hierarchy, parent elements and child elements are keep changing, because you just give id and name. Most of the times by using patterns you are able to identify your elements. So in few scenarios even CSS selector is playing, not only few, you can always almost, you can replace XPath as well. But only CSS selector can be applied for few scenarios where I think my id name and class names are changing here. So that is, use of CSS selector. Hope you enjoyed my video. If you like and really it is useful, please click on subscribe. Thank you.